Hey, it's Mo
And
Ari.
Tiffany.
And this is the Be Your Own Love Goals podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all so much. Our guest for today is Dr. Amber Thornton. Dr. Amber is a licensed clinical psychologist and author of A Parent's Guide to Self Regulation, a practical framework for breaking the cycle of dysregulation and mastering emotions for parents and children. Dr. Amber is a strong advocate for the mental health and well being of parents. She loves writing and creating content online that will speak to the everyday struggles of motherhood and parenthood. Dr. Amber holds a BS in psychology from The Ohio State University and a PsyD in clinical psychology from Wright State University School of Professional Psychology. She is an Ohio native who has made Washington, D.C. her home since 2018. She loves spending time with her husband and her two children. Learn more about Dr. Amber Thornton at dramberthornton.com. And here we go with our episode with Dr. Amber.
Let's get into this episode. You are now listening to the Be Your Own #Love Goals podcast with Mo Ari
and Tiffany.
We just want you to remember that every person, regardless of identity, wants these three things: belonging, authenticity, and love.
And after a decade of partnership, we've learned to co-create these things and so much more.
So from wherever you're listening, we're going to go on a journey of becoming our own #Love Goals. Now let's get into this episode.
Hello, everybody. Again, on our show today, we have Dr. Amber Thornton here today, and we're going to dive into millennial parenting, self-regulation as it relates to millennial parenting. And I am just so happy to have you here, Dr. Amber. Thank you so much for being here.
Yay.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm a fan of this podcast. And so I just love listening to you all every week. So was just thrilled to be invited. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things that we start off on our show with is the moral of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And the moral of the story is you offering to our audience kind of the end goal or what you want to leave with them, what you've learned in your journey as a professional, but also as a parent as it relates to this topic. What do you want them to know as the moral of the story?
Ooh, I love that you all start with this because I think sometimes we end with this type of conversation. But I think for me, the moral of the story is that everyone is human. Everyone will make mistakes. And this whole process of whether it's parenting or navigating your career or working through your relationship and your partnership, it's a journey and a process. And we all are learning and growing. And I think that's just something that I'm really starting to integrate for myself as a parent, but then also a professional who's been in this field for over 10 years. It's like, wow, things are really starting to shift for me and look differently. And I'm just really internalizing and integrating this whole, I'm a psychologist, I'm a mom, but also really I'm a human navigating life, and it's a process. So really giving yourself that grace and compassion.
Yeah. I mean, that is my current work in this point in my life. Like I am Tiffany, a human first, but I have all of these other like identities. Like, how do I quote unquote balance them? I don't think that there is a thing quite. I don't know that balance is the goal, but how do I like at least manage all of them? And so I love that you said that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so, Dr. Amber, you are doing this amazing work, particularly around millennial parenting. And as parents of almost 4 years, very soon, we are in the throes of toddlerhood and millennial parenting and like being pandemic parents.
Thinking about expanding our family. That's the one. How do you go from 1 to 2? It's like,
yes. Let's start there. How do you go from 1 to 2?
That's funny. Like I thought Mo was joking, but he's like, no, really, no. So let's start there. How do you So I will give my professional and then my personal, because
Okay.
it's like it's different depending on who we're talking to here. So
Mhm.
my professional answer would be, of course, lots of preparation, but then also
Mhm.
realizing that we're never fully prepared. So like
Mhm.
Yeah.
really talking, talking with your partner about like realistically what do we have going on here? What's our family strengths? What are areas of growth? What are some
Mhm.
things we need to work towards before
Mhm.
we feel ready to expand our family?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
also, depending on the age of your child, a little bit of work preparing them for that process too. But I
Yeah.
Mhm.
think as much as preparation, but then also realizing, hey, if we're committed to it, it'll work itself out.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
the mom version of me, the parent version of me is just like, you just gotta just do it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it'll just work itself out. I think for
Yeah.
me, I personally always knew I wanted at least two children. And so it was always,
Mm.
just kind of in my mind, it's like one, okay, now two. And I didn't
Yeah.
really think about it because it was just something that I always wanted to do. But it has
Yeah.
definitely been a process.
Yeah.
Actually,
Mm.
I didn't realize how challenging it was until like 2 years into having two kids. And I'm looking back like,
Mm.
Mm.
wow, that was an adjustment for
Mhm.
sure,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
so rewarding. I really
Yeah.
love
Mm.
watching my kids in their relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
They
Thank you
are
for
so
sharing
precious,
that.
by the way. Oh my God.
So
Their
cute.
bonds. Like,
Mhm.
I know I only get to see a glimpse of it, but what I see, I'm like, oh my God. Like, you literally, that your children are like what I think about when I think about having another kid. I'm like, oh, the sibling relationship would be so beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is. But then on the flip side, like literally just this morning, my son is like bothering the heck out of my daughter. And I'm like
Mm.
having to intervene, like,
Yeah.
Cedric, he said, stop it. Why aren't you stopping? It's constant, but it's really rewarding to watch their bond and them growing. But then also, shout out to me and my husband. I think we also feel good knowing like, hey, we get to watch them grow and time
Mm.
keeps going and we're doing a good job. So it's just really nice to
Mm.
expand and grow your family if that's something you choose to do. It's really rewarding,
Mm.
very fulfilling.
Mm.
Yeah, we definitely know already. It's like we want more
Yeah.
kids. It's like the timing
Yeah.
thing, but you're right. You kind of have to create that timing.
Mhm.
If you're waiting for a perfect time that probably isn't coming, it's like you have to create the
Mm-mm.
right environment or the most optimal environment to go with
Mhm.
it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And that's a word for any season of life you're in. When I was
Mm.
doing a lot more work with moms specifically, it
Yeah.
was that same thing, but
Yeah.
not about growing your family, but just other things like, okay, well, when do I make a
Yeah.
pivot in my career? Or when do
Mm.
I actually make these changes for my wellness? And I'm waiting for
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
perfect time. Although we're not realizing at this point, there's no perfect time coming.
Mhm.
It's
Mm-mm.
not coming. It's not coming.
No.
We just have to make the space and the time for the things we really want to prioritize.
Mhm.
Yeah. This really is aligned with your work too. This question I'm about to ask.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm really thinking about the people who would probably wait for parenthood until they feel that they've done enough
Mhm.
healing work to make sure that their children won't experience the
Mm.
traumas they did. A lot of times, this is what prevents. Heard a
Mm.
lot of people say that this is what prevents them from wanting to get married or be in long-term
Mhm.
relationships. They're like, I got a lot of stuff to work on me.
Mhm.
And so when
Right.
I hear from people, not everybody who doesn't want to have children is feeling this. Some people are like, that just doesn't make sense for my life.
Mhm.
But for some
Mhm.
people I've talked to, it's really been their desire to refrain from having kids has really been about, I didn't see a lot of great parenting growing
Mhm.
up. My parents
Yeah.
got divorced, all these other things. Are like, I don't want that to happen to a kid.
Yeah.
What Because you give a lot of great advice about how to navigate challenges with your own emotion regulation. Like, how do
Yeah.
you navigate someone coming to you and saying, hey, look, I've had a
Mhm.
very traumatic history and I don't want any of that with my child. So I'm just going to
Right.
not have
Right.
children.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
say?
That makes a lot of sense to me. Oops, sorry, it paused a bit. But I'm so glad that you brought that question up because the way that I see it, it's like I do think that most people should do some sort of reflective work, some sort of mental health
Yeah.
preparation, therapy, spiritual work, whatever it is to
Mhm.
prepare you to become a parent.
Mhm.
But that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you have to be 100%
Mm.
Mm.
through the
Yeah.
work that you're wanting to do. Because
Mhm.
honestly, let's be real, the work that we're trying to do sometimes takes a lifetime. And we
Yeah.
it's all an unfolding. It's a
Yeah.
lifetime. I'm going to be working
Mhm.
on myself for the rest of my life, and so will
Right.
you, and so will our kids. Like, that's
Yeah.
just life. And so I
Mhm.
would say to someone, if they came to my office or my practice with that concern, my hope is that we would work towards a place where we're helping them to realize, yes, do your
Mhm.
work, address the issues that you think might be barriers for you to become the parent you want to be, but then also realize that there's never a perfect time, and
Mm.
Mhm.
this work does not have to be complete before you
Mhm.
embark on this parenting journey.
Mm.
Because as you all probably know, there's so much unfolding and healing that happens once you meet your child,
Oh
right?
my
Like,
God.
the
Absolutely.
stuff you don't even know what's supposed to be happening. You're like,
Exactly.
oh man, I have this child, and now there's this thing in here that I had no idea was there. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
sometimes having your children or parenting your children can shift your healing journey in a new direction
Mhm.
Exactly.
too. So I think
Exactly.
it's
Absolutely.
just, finding that middle ground of, I don't have to be perfect before I become a parent, but yes, it is still
Mhm.
important to address
Mhm.
any mental health or emotional concerns that I have.
Mm.
Mhm.
Wow.
So
I
important.
single-handedly think that becoming a parent was a catalyst for a lot of healing
Mhm.
for me that I don't know would have happened without becoming a
Right.
parent.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
I can't imagine what scenario it would have been for me to confront some of the challenges that I have had to after having
Mhm.
Nova without having Nova, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of
Absolutely.
sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like, when you just said that, I was just thinking, kind of scanning like the big areas that I feel like
Mhm.
my children are helping me to heal in.
Mhm.
Would I have opportunities to do that work
Mhm.
without them?
Mhm.
I don't even think those areas will be on my radar.
Me
Like,
either.
Exactly.
they wouldn't even be on my radar. So I completely understand and agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Oh my
I
goodness.
Mhm.
love the beauty of this work around parenthood. It's like
Right.
accountability is really high on that list of the things that
Mhm.
I know we all are probably
Mhm.
challenged with.
Mhm.
These
Right.
beautiful humans are like, I am going to show you yourself, constantly. There's
Yes.
a lot of beauty to that. I always call Nova like one of my greatest teachers, and I really mean that. It's not just like a really beautiful thing to say. I am like a student in her classroom. She's
Yep.
showing me how to live life in
Mhm.
a very, a free way, a way that is in flow with love. She can move on from something so quickly and go
Mhm.
right back to her heart center.
Mhm.
She could be upset with me, and then she's like, "It's okay, daddy." As soon as she gets her apology, she's moved on.
Yes.
Mhm.
I
Absolutely.
saw
My
you
children are
reacting.
the
I'm like,
same.
I'm gonna give you space for that. You're like, absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. They teach you so much. And it's
Mhm.
Mhm.
so funny. I know we're going to talk about the book, but I
Mhm.
dedicated my book to my son because he
Mhm.
Mm.
was really the one that, like, illuminated in me this issue I had, really being honest
Mm.
Mhm.
about dysregulation and what it meant for me
Mm.
to become more regulated as his mother and as a
Yeah.
Mm.
parent. It
Yeah.
really wasn't something that I knew I had a struggle with until
Yeah.
Yeah.
I became a parent.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
like you're saying, it sounds beautiful to say that you learned so much from your child, or even me saying I dedicated my book to him. But
Mhm.
really,
Yeah.
it also comes with a lot of
Yeah.
honest struggles,
Yeah.
challenges, like mistakes that I've made as a
Yeah.
parent because of some of the things that he's teaching me. Like, he's putting the mirror to my face, like, hey, mom,
Yeah. Yeah.
here's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not saying it like that, but so true. But then also, children are so loving and so forgiving. And even in
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
work, I see that even in adult children, right? Like,
Mhm.
I can work with people who have been abused and traumatized, and they still have some sort of love for their parent. They're
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Oh my
forgiving in that
gosh.
way.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's such an interesting and powerful journey. Like, we really do learn so much from our children and just stepping
Mhm.
into the
Mhm.
world of parenthood.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So much. So Amber,
Mhm.
Dr. Amber, with dedicating your book to Cedric, and
Mhm.
realizing that you had this challenge, what
Yeah.
what was it that made you aware that you were dysregulated?
Mm.
For anybody listening, I think I'm even asking for myself, like, how do you
Mhm.
know that you're dysregulated as a parent? Like, what would
Yeah.
that look like?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for me and many parents like me, I think dysregulation, just at the core, like a basic
Mhm.
definition for today, dysregulation can happen for parent or for adults and children, parents especially. And it's really just a moment when you feel like you don't have control over your feelings, your emotions, your
Mm.
physical body, your
Yeah.
Mm.
reactions. You kind of feel out of control, and
Mhm.
the equilibrium is off. You're just not
Mm.
able to really respond in the way you want to. And so for
Yeah.
me, what did that look like when I was dysregulated? There were so many moments in my first few years of motherhood where I was just not the parent that I really imagined myself to
Yeah.
be.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I was a lot more irritable than I wanted
Mm.
to be. I was a
Mhm.
lot more
Yeah.
short
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
temper, like
Yeah.
very anxious. And for
Mm.
me, and I think this happens for a lot of people of color, our
Yeah.
irritation or our anxiety can come off
Mhm.
as like, well, our anxiety, even our sadness can like show up as like this irritation,
Yeah.
right? This
Yeah.
Mhm.
irritability when really it's just like we're hurting. And so
Yeah.
it
Mm.
was just this ongoing challenge of I'm not able to manage my feelings in
Mm.
any given moment when really I'm expected to be able to help my children manage theirs, right? So we're
Mm.
Mm.
talking about the toddler years. We know our toddlers
Ooh,
have huge emotions,
huge.
big feelings, and
Mhm.
toddlers are not supposed to be expected to manage all of that. It's
Mm-mm.
because it's our job to help them. But what do you
Yeah.
do if you're a parent who can't even manage your own emotions that come up when your toddler is tantruming,
Baby.
right?
Yeah.
So it gets really hard to talk about sometimes because there's
Mhm.
a lot of shame that people feel
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to support my child if I can't even manage my own emotions, or even just the fear of talking about it? People don't
Mhm.
want to admit, like, I yell at my kids, I lose my
Mhm.
temper with my kids. People
Yeah.
don't
Mhm.
want to admit those things, but it's really important to do it because when you start to realize, oh, I'm not the only one.
Yep.
Right.
And then when you get to talk about it, you get to see, oh, this is what's actually going on, and here's
Mhm.
the solution.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm so glad we're talking about this.
Yeah.
You and your husband made a video, I would say like in the past few months. It was when the Of Course challenge was kind of going around,
Yeah.
and you all were talking
Yeah.
about being millennial parents. And this is
Mhm.
something that I think we kind of hinted at this on the podcast, but really we talk a lot behind the scenes about how so many of Black parents, I would say my parents are baby boomers, yours are
Yeah.
Gen X,
Mhm.
but so many Black
Mine are baby
parents.
boomers.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah. They
Mhm.
definitely had this, they got handed down a lot of like corporal punishments,
Yeah.
whipping your
Right.
kids.
Yep.
It was a lot. And I
Mhm.
would say like
Yeah.
my upbringing with my parents, I genuinely believe that they were afraid that something would happen to us. So they were really trying to instill discipline,
Right.
and they got neglected, I would say, as children in many ways. So they were like thinking we're
Yes.
doing something better because we're really on our
Yeah.
kids to
Present.
not be out in the street. I mean, they've been through some things.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
but that was too much
Yes.
for me and my little sensitive soul. So it was pretty
Yes.
traumatic. So
Yes.
we talk like we don't want to keep recreating these things, and I still don't know if the cultural conversation around this has shifted. And I thought that the video that you and your husband made was so beautiful, that you all were talking so openly about doing something different.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of courage to say that, because a lot of times people will talk about like beating their kid. Well, my kids, they know if something they get out of line, and it's just like, actually there's a possibility that we could do something different
Yeah.
than what was
Yeah.
done to us.
Mhm.
Do you see any kind of cultural shifts happening in how we're talking about
Mm.
disciplining our children? And like maybe I'm
Yeah.
limited in what I see happening, so I'm really
Mhm.
wondering from you, since you talk about this
Yeah.
so often.
I do see a shift happening. I
Okay,
Okay.
do. And
good.
I think it's a gradual shift. I do think a lot more people who are parenting in this current generation, they're really shifting their mindset around what
Mhm.
discipline means and what it can look
Mhm.
like for a child. And I think for people who are parenting now, many of us are thinking about discipline as teaching
Yeah,
versus discipline as like something that's harsh and might
right.
include
Mm.
some sort of corporal
Exactly.
punishment.
Physical,
Or
yeah.
right, or discipline being something that's punitive, right? Like,
Mm,
I know in our home, when we say discipline, it's really how do we teach
yeah.
something that maybe our child did not know or wasn't aware
Mm.
of, right?
Mm.
But also,
Mhm.
I think what you're saying is so important too, because many of us are having this mindset shift about parenting and discipline and all that because we realize intergenerational trauma
Oh my
has
god.
impacted a lot of what happened. There's like
Yes.
Yeah.
so much trauma. And so
Mhm.
when you start to look at it from that perspective, you then start to think, okay, if that's why my parents were responding or reacting in that way, but that's not my experience or that's not what I'm
Mhm.
feeling or sensing or experiencing, maybe I can do something different
Mhm.
because
Yes.
I do think, for I'll speak for baby boomers. My parents were baby boomers. So much trauma. Oh my gosh.
So much trauma.
Like so much trauma is
Mhm.
in my family migrated from the South,
Mhm.
Yeah.
in the 50s. And so
Wow.
it's just like there's so much that we can say just about racial trauma, but then also in
Yes.
my
Mm,
family, there was a lot of personal trauma, a lot of
mm,
relational trauma that really impacted the way that my parents showed up. And I think
yeah.
Mhm.
in my home too, and I think a lot of millennials, the priority in their home growing up was, well, my kids have parents.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Exactly. The
we're
bare
making sure
minimum.
they're going to school every day. I
Mhm.
know from my home, it was very much like my dad was, unfortunately, bless his soul, he's passed, but
Oh,
he didn't have a father, and so he was
wow.
Mm.
very
Yeah.
fixated on, well, I'm here and
Yeah.
I didn't have a
Mm.
father, so my presence is
Yeah.
enough.
Got
And now
Yeah.
it.
we see, well, but that was his perspective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
it's like we nowadays, with the language that we have and the conversations we're having about like trauma, intergenerational trauma, parenting,
Mhm.
we just get
Mhm.
to analyze it in a much different way. And
Yeah.
I
Mm.
think that's so important. So to answer the question, I am seeing a shift in how
Good.
we're seeing this because I just
Yeah.
think we have more access to deeper conversations around it,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's more normalized to be talking about this
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's good, Amber. And
Thank you.
you made a post the other day, and it's something that Mo and I talk about often about how a
Hmm.
lot of times people parent based on what they didn't get
Mhm.
Right.
versus parenting your child that is standing in front of you as what your child
Exactly.
needs.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think that's been a lot of the intergenerational trauma is that,
Yeah.
as you all are
Yeah.
mentioning, having baby boomer parents, you were
Hmm.
neglected, or you experienced a level of trauma. You're like, okay, I'm gonna make sure my kid doesn't go through what I went through, and you totally
Hmm.
miss who your kid is, what your kid needs,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
what might be
Yes.
pressing or more important for them at that moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I try to have a lot of empathy for our parents'
Yeah.
generation because
Yeah.
like again, we got the internet. We get to sit
Yeah.
online and talk about mental health all
Yeah.
day.
All
We
day.
hear this conversation all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
But like our
Mhm.
parents didn't, and they also
Yeah.
were
Mhm.
shamed and afraid to do it.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so it's like, how can you put aside your unmet needs or what you might have needed as a child if you're not able to have conversations to help you get there?
Mm.
It
Yeah.
but we get to have these conversations,
Yeah.
so it gives us that
Yeah.
insight and that awareness of all these things
Mhm.
that maybe our
Yeah.
parents just did not have access
They
to.
did
Mhm.
not.
So in that way, I do feel so grateful to be a part of this
Yeah.
generation because it's like
Mhm.
we're moving the needle, but because of this new access that we have to
Mhm.
information and just the freedom to talk about things that our parents weren't able to.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're so spot on.
Mhm.
I've had the
Mhm.
honor of going to family therapy with my parents as an adult to talk about
Whew.
things from my
I know.
childhood. it was a
Baby.
it was a challenge, and it was also an honor that they were so open to
Yeah.
going. And I realized that through the work,
Yeah.
they had
Yeah.
absolutely no access or
Mhm.
idea of this level of insight. They didn't know that this could be
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
They
Right.
literally thought that they were doing the best
Mhm.
I
thing
know. Yep.
at all
Mhm.
times. So to see that
Mhm.
love shine through, even though it wasn't always felt, it changed my relationship to them. And I got to say
Yeah.
things. So I'm saying this so that anybody listening, like, considers going to therapy to really process what happened as a child.
Yeah.
Because it shifted
Mhm.
for me, like, so much. I got to
Mhm.
say to them, like, I didn't always feel loved when y'all were hitting me like that.
Mhm.
It didn't occur to me that you prayed for me. It
Mhm.
didn't occur to me that you asked
Yeah.
God that I be here. So when they
Mm.
said that in therapy, like, we prayed for you, it just hurts that you didn't think we loved you. I was like, well, now
Mhm.
I know, you know. But it was a healing moment. It was really beautiful
Yes.
to do that.
Yep.
Mhm.
And sometimes, and I think it taught them though that it's okay to talk about your pain, because then we started to talk about their upbringings,
Mhm.
their childhoods, which I had heard a lot about, but for them to talk about it from a place of, it wasn't right that this thing happened to me,
Yeah.
because they had
Mhm.
normalized so many things that were not okay
Mm-mm.
that happened to them, because they grew up
Yes.
where you better not speak bad about your parent,
Yep.
and bad being saying
Mhm.
anything against what they did.
Anything.
Anything.
Yes.
Anything.
Literally
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Literally.
That's mhm. Mhm. And that's
Yeah.
just so I'm so glad that you get to have that experience with your
Yeah.
parents, because I know that so many of our parents are like, absolutely not.
We're
They may
not going
not
to
be open.
therapy. Yeah.
Like, what you mean talk to somebody about our problems? But
Mhm.
again, I really try to have that compassion for them, because it's like it takes a lot to get to the point where you feel ready, not
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
to address that with someone else, but also you yourself
Mhm.
Mhm.
willing to go there within yourself. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard. So
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
that's awesome that you're having that experience, or that you had that experience with them.
Mhm.
Yeah. I know I needed it from my own journey. I definitely have struggled
Yeah.
with regulation in the context of parenting,
Mhm.
like just so
Yeah.
much trauma emerging in my
Yeah.
body. And
Mhm.
I've been grateful that
Yeah.
I've been a therapist in this process, because I have the tools to be able to stop and realize that that's what's happening. But I can only imagine what that's like when you don't even have words to describe what's going
Mm.
on.
Mm.
So the
Yep.
work you're doing is so important,
Oh
so
my gosh.
meaningful, so
Mhm.
powerful. And I'm saying this to everybody, but I'm also talking directly to anybody who's been through any kind of physical, sexual, or verbal abuse. We
Yeah.
walking out here with all of these traumas, it shows up. And for
Yes.
me, I think being a therapist, I was a little in denial about that. I've done my work. I've gone to
Right.
therapy for myself. I
Yep.
work with people every day. Then this little human comes along that puts my
Blows it
inner
all up.
child right out in front of me. I'm
Yep.
scared. I'm super protective. I don't want nothing to happen to her, so I'm irritable. I'm anxious. You have
Yes.
no idea that that's what's going on until you
Mhm.
sit with it. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just enamored with your work. I
Yeah.
like am a
Yeah.
huge Dr. Amber fan, and I'm
Yes.
gonna be
Oh,
quiet
thank
because I'll just
you.
keep going
No,
on fangirling you.
no, no, I really appreciate that. And I just think you're also highlighting this other point that I want to highlight. It's
Mhm.
like, I too had a similar experience. Like, as a
Mhm.
psychologist, I would always tell my husband, like, look, I've been doing this. I know what I'm
Yeah.
doing. You need to listen to me. Right. But then I become a parent, and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Yet I have been working with parents for
Mhm.
years, for
Mhm.
Yes.
years. And so
Yeah.
it really humbles you to become a parent, but then
Mhm.
Mhm.
also to realize, like, oh, there's these emotional things that I feel like I don't have a handle on. And I
Yeah.
think
Mm.
something else you said, I want to help people understand too. If you have experienced abuse, neglect,
Yeah.
physical trauma, sexual traumas, relational traumas in your past, especially your childhood, it does make you more at risk to have challenges with regulating yourself, or
Mm.
it might put you more
Yeah.
at risk for experiencing mental health concerns. And so this is not a personal failure of yours if you
Right.
are realizing, oh, as a parent, I can't regulate myself.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
really, uh, you know, uh, it's because of what happened to you.
Yeah.
and we can help heal that, and I was
Mm.
really trying to be so mindful when I wrote this book.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel like I'm doing something wrong, there's something wrong
Yeah.
with me, and that's why I'm struggling with this, but really it's
Mhm.
like, no, if you are struggling with overwhelm, overstimulation, not being able to regulate your feelings, all of that, it's that means that there are things happening to you in the moment, or things have happened in the past, and we can
Mhm.
address that, and we can talk about those things. There's a solution for those things too. um,
Yeah.
or you don't even have, maybe you didn't go through any traumas at
Yeah.
all. You
Yeah.
still might find yourself super overwhelmed and
Yes.
dysregulated by toddlers,
Yeah.
or by an infant, or by
Yeah.
teenagers. And so it really can happen to anybody. And I think that's
Mhm.
why
Yeah.
it's just so important to have such an open conversation about this,
Mhm.
because so many of us have experienced this challenge in parenthood and feeling like
Mhm.
it's a personal failure, when absolutely
Yes.
not. It's
Mhm.
really just like, we need some more skills, we need some more practice for how to practice these skills, and we need some grace.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Mhm.
saying that.
Mhm.
I'm taking in that affirmation for myself.
I'm taking it in too, and I think for me, Dr. Amber, it's been so your work has been so helpful in naming it and
Mhm.
claiming it, right? Because I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, being dysregulated is like, it's kind of stigmatized.
Yes.
Just like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
similar to admitting that you've experienced postpartum depression or even postpartum anxiety.
Yep.
And so many of those
Mhm.
things I was not willing to admit that I
Right.
went through, that, I had to confront. And so being able to witness your work, I'm like, okay, I think I get a little dysregulated when this thing happens. Or I think what I'm
Yep.
experiencing is some overstimulation. And I think, for me, the mom guilt kicked in.
Yeah.
Also,
Right.
with it being stigmatized, it's like, but I had this baby and she's so beautiful and fun and
Yeah.
playful. Why
Yeah.
am I overstimulated by her whining?
Yeah.
To this day,
Yes. Yes.
whining is one of those things that, like, it
Yep.
it's at the top of my list for things that will immediately send me over, okay?
I know.
And I used to
Yes.
feel really bad, honestly. I used to feel really bad.
Mhm.
I'm like, but
Mhm.
she doesn't really know how to communicate. This is how she is trying to get her needs
Mhm.
met.
Yeah.
But in the moment, I
Yeah.
wasn't able to rationalize with myself. I would just get so upset. So your work
I
has
know.
really helped me to identify, okay, Tiffany, you're dysregulated here. We got to do something here.
Mhm.
And to also release
Mhm.
myself from the guilt of
Mhm.
Yes.
experiencing
Yes.
that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
so glad, because like, still whining for me is probably number 2, number 1 on the list. It still bothers me. I wrote this whole book, and still it always will. And I think that's the point too. And so there's a chapter in the book where I have people identify their parenting triggers, because
Mm.
it's like, let's be honest. Yes, you're a parent. Yes, you love your children so much, and there's still going to be things that they do that just sends you
Oh my
like,
God.
Yeah.
no words. You just like,
Yes.
"Urgh," right? And so instead of pretending like that's not the case,
Mm.
let's just call it out, right? Like,
Yeah.
identify it
Yeah.
so that you can be more prepared when these things
Mhm.
happen.
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah.
can have a plan for, okay, when my child does this, what's my plan so that I don't lose my
Mm.
cool? Or what is
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
plan to manage my emotions or my reactions so that we can have a proper evening, right? Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
we just have to be more prepared and be more aware so
Mhm.
we can know how to handle it better, versus trying
Mhm.
to stuff it, or versus pretending like it shouldn't happen, or getting guilty every time.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's such a waste of
Yeah.
energy when we feel guilty about these things that are really just our humanity. We're human,
Mhm.
and of course our kids are going to trigger something in us.
Yes.
Yeah.
How could they not?
How could
you
they
know
not?
Yeah.
If
Oh.
number 2 is whining for you, Amber, what's number 1? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, I should have really thought about this. I don't know. There's so many. So, like, whining is really a big one. It really is. Like, as soon
Yeah.
as you said it, I heard both of my children doing it, and it was just like, "Argh." But I
Wow.
Mhm.
think for me, this other one, and this I think goes back to like being raised by boomers as well,
Yeah.
not listening. Like
Mm.
Mhm.
that, for whatever reason, will just get me to be, it puts me in this mode of like, I'm the parent, blah, blah, and I'm just like, wait a
Mm.
minute, talking to
Yeah.
myself, like, hold on. wait,
Yeah.
hold on now. Like,
Mhm.
let's look, yes, you're a parent, but you can't make anybody do anything, even your
Mhm.
child.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
what else do we need to do here? Do we need to change our approach? Do we need
Yeah.
to back away? Do we need to give it some space? Like, now I'm able to have that type of conversation with myself versus
Mm.
getting so angry or getting so irritated or yelling, right? And
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think that's often the go to if we
Yeah.
don't first give ourselves that grace and that space to really think about how we're responding in the moment
Yeah.
before we become
Yeah.
dysregulated. So
Mhm.
yeah, like I don't know, my kids, especially my son, that's why the book is dedicated to him. It's like these things that I'm like, okay, I realize you are 5, I'm 36.
Mhm.
I want to put into place some of these practices
Mhm.
so that we can be okay,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so,
Mhm.
our relationship won't be impacted by my inability to recognize what is going on in me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. I just feel the power of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was transported back to this early experience of like being a new parent. It's the
Yeah.
pandemic. It's
Oh my
probably
god.
still
It
2020.
was
Nova was like a very young infant.
mhm.
Tiffany
Oh,
was at the point where she's like, I have to go to the store. She just
I
needed to
had to
have
get
a
out.
moment to go to
just
Walgreens.
gotta leave the house. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't leave me with Nova because right now you're her milk supply. And I knew Nova was going to scream at the
Oh.
top of her lungs. And when I say Nova
Mhm.
would she did scream
Yeah.
at the top of her lungs from the time Tiffany left. And I
Mhm.
don't know how she knew Tiffany wasn't there. But until the time Tiffany came back, and I'm like, I am here with you. We're in a pandemic. It ain't nobody else here with you. I'm here. And she just was like, I want my mom. Like, I knew what that was for her. It was a
Oh.
visceral sense. She's like, she is not in this house. And Nova just has always just had this.
Mhm.
So I remember holding her, she's screaming and crying. I start crying. And that's all I could do until Tiffany came back. I
Yes.
don't know, did I call you and have you talk to
I think
her?
he called me, but when I came back in the house, Dr. Amber, he's holding Nova. They're crying, and I'm like, "What happened? Like, what is going
I
on?"
I couldn't do anything else. I'm like, I know she's not gonna feel better. I tried
Oh.
giving her food. I'm just crying with you. This is all we can do.
Mhm. And I think it
That
was
is
this particular
hilarious.
moment where, once I had talked to him about what was going on, I think you might have likened it, or you asked, like, you mentioned to me, "It feels like I'm fighting with her," or something of that sort. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Why does it feel like a fight?"
Yeah.
Like, and it was a moment where I think he literally sighed and was like, "Wait, why do I think it's a fight?
Mm-hmm.
What is
And why does
Mm,
it
it?"
feel so much like a struggle?
Yes.
Yeah.
right.
And I think you were able to recognize that you were maybe not leaning in, or
Mm-hmm.
you were
Mhm.
viewing it as like this thing you had to defend against. And when
Mm-hmm.
I say thing,
Mhm.
not necessarily Nova, but the difficulty of that moment.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely a moment I came back
Yeah.
home like, what the heck is going
We
on?
just crying
Mm.
together. And
That
I'm
is
glad for
so
that because I walked away from that with a reframe
Yeah.
versus taking it in like Nova
yeah.
doesn't. She does not want me. I was able to walk away from
Mhm.
that, not feeling like,
Mhm.
oh, it's always gonna be a struggle or something.
Yeah.
I was just like, Tiffany is her safe
Yes.
base right now. The world is new, it's scary, so she's afraid. And
Mhm.
that
Right.
helped change how I was approaching that. And now we're
Mhm.
like inseparable
Oh my
and
god.
whatnot. But this I never
Yeah.
had a kid before. So I'm like, she's never gonna like me. Like I'm really
Yeah.
in that
Mhm.
story. And Tiffany is like, why does it have to be like
Mhm.
that? And
Mhm.
that really changed my
Mhm.
perspective. And it showed me very early on that a lot of this is our perspective,
Yes.
our stories that we got from when we were younger,
Mhm.
because my dad would work nights. He'd have to he wasn't always in the house in the evening. So my ability to calm her as her dad was so important to me.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
know that it doesn't happen overnight. So I had to learn
Right.
that.
Right.
Mhm.
Mhm. Oh, I love that story. There's so much I could say about that. Like, I think the first thing that I'm sorry, I just was like, oh, there's so much I could say. The first thing that came to mind for me, it's like, so with this book, I really wanted it's so funny. Like, I think sometimes people might assume that the book is like a lot of strategies about like breathing, da 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 da,
Mm.
but it really is
Yeah.
like very emotional. It's like there's a lot of
Mhm.
emotional work we need to do, because
Mm.
even with your example, if you continue to stay in that narrative and carry that narrative, could you
Mhm.
imagine how many other moments of dysregulation you would have with
Yep.
her, just
Yeah.
because you were not able to let go
Yep.
of this, whatever the narrative was. And many
Yeah.
of us have that. It's whether it's like narratives that we're carrying or traumas that we're carrying
Mhm.
or like unaddressed emotions that we're carrying. Sometimes it's those things that are kind of like
Mm.
raising the level with which, like,
Mm.
oh man, oops, dysregulated,
Yep.
because like all that stuff is underneath and we are
Mhm.
just not addressing it, or we're not aware of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But so the other part that I was thinking, I have had a similar experience when I had an infant and little kids too. Just
Mhm.
like, why does it feel like a fight? Like, why does it feel like a
Yeah.
Yeah.
struggle? And I think many people have that experience, and it could be for so many other reasons
Yep.
too. And
Yeah.
everybody's different. And I know for me, it was like, I'm so used to everything going my way. I'm so used to
Mm.
Mm.
being in control.
Yeah.
I'm ambitious. I'm a
That's a
doer. But
word.
then when you have when you have children,
Baby.
nothing goes your way.
Mm-mm.
They not gonna do what you say. Like
Mm-mm.
it just feels like, oh my gosh, it's not going as easily as it always has for me.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that for me was like, it feels like I have to fight so much harder
Yeah.
when everything
Yeah.
else in life has been just been so much easier or so much
Mm.
Yeah.
smoother. And so
Yeah.
for me, it's like part of my journey in all of this is letting go of control and
Mm.
Mm.
really just embracing like the chaos. I always
Yeah.
call it the chaos that children can bring, and
Yeah.
just being
Yeah.
more comfortable with it. And that, I realized, for me, a lot of my dysregulated moments are really just me trying to hold on too tightly and control something that I have no business
Mm.
controlling.
Mm.
And it's a continual work
Yeah.
in progress. Like at my core, I'm most comfortable when I'm in control and when I
Yeah.
can like hold on tight, but I
Yeah.
gotta let
Yeah.
go. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
in going back to our earlier point, if I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna wait until I completely work this out to have
Mhm.
kids, I would never have kids. And so it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's a work in process, and having the kids helps me to see it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
to be able to continue to work on it.
Mhm.
Wow.
So,
That's beautiful. Thank
So
you.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Amber, you
Ooh,
have this
wow.
amazing book that is coming out, and we
Yes.
want to know, like, what can we expect from this book? When is it coming out?
mhm,
Like, what this
yes.
is such important work, and we have gotten at a lot of different aspects of it. But for our
Yeah.
viewers that are
Mhm.
listening, what can they expect from your book? Yeah, all the things I want to know
All
for
the
myself too.
things.
Yes. Yes. I'm so excited. This is my first time writing a book, and
Yay!
the process has been so amazing, and I didn't realize how long the process is.
Mm,
And so it just feels so exciting to now be coming to the point where the book is going to be released. So the title of the book is A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation.
mm,
It's a long title, so let me say the second part of the title. Breaking the Cycle of Dysregulation and Mastering Emotions for Parents and Children.
Love
And
it.
mm.
so the book will be released June 18th of 2024. Of
Okay,
course, it's
Yeah.
available for pre-order at this point.
okay.
But really, I wrote this book for parents who are really trying to parent differently.
Mm.
Maybe they can resonate with probably our earlier conversation around maybe some of the ways they were parented didn't
Mhm,
don't really align with how they want to do parenting,
Yeah.
or maybe they feel like they themselves have some unmet needs, and
mhm,
Yeah.
now they're just trying to make up for that or do something different.
mhm,
I also wrote this book for the parent who maybe has children, and trying to teach them, like, how do you regulate your feelings? How do you talk about your
Yeah.
feelings? How do
mm,
you manage feelings? But then you're realizing, like, well, damn, I can't even talk to my kids about this because I'm missing these skills. Like,
mhm.
I
Mm.
don't have the skills, or I myself still have tantrums. I myself
Yes,
still having trouble
baby.
regulating my emotions,
Mhm,
right? Like, so I also wrote this book for people who have experienced traumas or
mhm,
intergenerational traumas, emotional wounds that they fear will interfere with their parenting journey.
mhm,
And so from this book, people can really expect to learn so much more about themselves when it comes to
Mm.
their own emotional healing and how to
mhm,
regulate the big emotions that will come in their day to day. I
mm,
Mm.
think so often in the parenting dialogue right now, there's a lot of focus on this is how you need to say
Yeah.
this to your child, or this is how
Mhm.
we need to parent here, or when your child does this, don't do that because this
Mhm.
is how your child will feel.
Mhm.
And I just think there needs to be more focus on, okay, you want me to say this, you want me to do this, but what do I do if in the moment I can't even gather my thoughts because I'm
Yes.
Yes.
so whatever the emotion is for you,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like we need more work around that part. Parents can't be the parents they want to be. They can't show up in the ways they want to if they themselves don't feel confident in their
Mhm.
Yes.
ability to care for
Mhm.
themselves, regulate themselves, identify
Mhm.
their own feelings and emotions, and feel strong enough to also do that with their kids. So that's
Mm.
what this book is about. There's a lot of tangible, practical skills, but then also a lot of deep, reflective work
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
around who am I and what am I being impacted by, and how do
Mm.
I ensure that that doesn't follow me negatively in my parenting.
Mm.
Mm.
That's so good.
Mhm.
I'm excited to read your book. I
Yes.
know it's going to help
Thank
me in this
you.
chapter of my journey and in ongoing, chapters in
Hmm.
parenthood. I
Mhm.
imagine stuff comes up
Absolutely.
as like we evolve, like yeah, with kids of different gender expressions, and it's just like it
Hmm.
really our work will just continue to evolve over time. So I'm really grateful that you are creating this
Absolutely.
resource for the community,
Mhm.
for all community, for all people. I'm
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
gonna take it like it was especially made for me and my
Yes,
situation.
Oh my
it was,
gosh.
it was.
It is so needed. I think,
Yeah.
I think to your earlier point of the conversation shifting, so many
Mhm.
people that just even in the social media space that I follow that are parents or really on an intentional journey of parenting are very much wanting to break the cycles. They are
Yes.
wanting to
Yes.
do something different. And the people that I find that are
Mhm.
not or are, it's
Yep.
those toxic parenthood accounts that I just have to unfollow because it's
Yes.
just too much. But there are a lot
Yeah.
of people who really are wanting to be intentional and wanting to be
Mhm.
very conscious. And so this book, I
Yes.
will sing it to the mountaintops. I cannot wait to read it because I feel like I really need it. So I am so grateful, Dr.
Mm.
Amber, that you wrote this book and
Yeah.
that you are sharing so vulnerably about your struggle with it because even with writing this book
Mhm.
you had to accept like
Yep.
okay, I'm dysregulated, and then you were like, okay, I want to
Yep.
help other people. I want other people to know that they're not crazy, like this is a real thing, and
Yes.
to also be doing
Mhm.
this while you're still evolving.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely, and I honestly, that shout out to the creator because
I
I
love
shared in
it.
another post, like, when I got the publisher reached out to me and presented this topic, and I was like, "I don't know nothing about that." Like, in my head, I'm thinking, I don't know nothing about that. I can't
Mhm.
do
Yeah.
that. Like, yes, I'm a psychologist, but I'm struggling with that. And I just,
Mhm.
I'm also someone who just believes, things aren't coincidence, and there was a reason that I
Yeah.
needed to write that book, and I think it's partly for the people who are listening, but also it was a lot of it for me, just
Yeah.
Yeah.
really addressing something that I knew was a struggle for myself. And
Mhm.
so it kind of forced me to, like, okay, say yes to this book because you want to write a book, but
Mhm.
also you need to do this work. You need to do
Mhm.
this work so that you can actually understand this and know what's going on, so you can show up better for
Mhm.
yourself as a parent, but then also share what you've learned. And
Oh,
Mhm.
so
I
I'm
love it.
so grateful, so
Yeah.
excited, and I can't wait for people
Yeah.
to read it and just to hear the conversation and the feedback around it. My hope is that it's just so inspiring and so
Mm.
helpful for a lot of other people.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I already know it will be,
Mhm.
everything that you offer online, what you're offering to us here, everywhere you go, even your news interviews, you're always giving these very important pieces of wisdom, so I know the
Yeah.
book will be full of that.
Mhm.
Tiff, you have our truth or truth question
I
here?
do have our truth or truth question.
Okay.
I know, Dr. Amber, this is the thing I've heard you talk about. I know I have shared my frustration with this. So, the truth or truth
Okay.
question today is: would you
Mhm.
rather be in charge of the morning routine
Mhm.
with your kids or be
Okay.
in charge of the 4 to 7 window?
Oh. The whole 4 to 7.
The whole 4 to
Because I call that
7.
the second shift.
Oh my
The whole
Yeah.
second
god.
shift by myself. Okay. Honestly, this might surprise you. I will go with the second shift
Okay.
Mm.
because for me, and again, it's different for everybody, and this is why it's
Yeah.
important to know your parenting triggers, know
Yeah.
who you are, be honest with
Mhm.
yourself. For me, that morning, that's when I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, hurry up, we need to do this. You need because
Yeah.
Yeah.
like that person in me that wants to control everything.
Mhm.
There's so many moving parts in a morning routine,
Yeah.
especially with
Mhm.
two kids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's like so many people need to be ready at a certain time, and
Yeah.
so many moving pieces. I think for me, the morning routine brings this time pressure that just completely that's a
Mhm.
trigger for me, the
Yeah.
time
Mm.
pressure. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so nope, I don't want to do that by myself. I've had to do it by myself. And I always get really irritated with my partner when he's like, I gotta travel for work. And I'm like,
Really?
Yeah.
So we
okay.
traveling
But
now.
right. But the 4 to 7 shift, it's like, it's like, okay, it's the end of the day.
Mhm.
Things can be a little hectic, be a little
Mhm.
kooky. That's okay. It's
Mhm.
like there's not as much pressure because I
Mm.
Yeah.
know at the end of the day they're gonna go to bed anyways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'll take the second shift.
Mhm.
Please do
Yeah.
not put me in charge of the morning routine by
Mhm.
myself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Please.
That I'm sorry.
I think I kind of feel the same way. I think I picked second shift. In the morning, that's like when I write. That's like I need to be alone with my
Yep.
thoughts more. So it has to be slow. So I can
Mhm.
only imagine with two children. Now Nova makes this easy for me now, but I would not pick I don't think I would pick the morning shift with two children. It would definitely become like a hustle and bustle, let
Mm.
alone like when she starts going to school is yeah, we can
It's a
kind of
hustle.
come in
Yeah.
there anytime between 8 and 10 right now. That's not the same with school.
Yeah. Y'all
No.
are giving me
Yeah.
good perspective because the 4 to 7 shift for me, I am at my wits end.
Yeah,
And
she
I
really
do feel
is.
like
Mhm.
there's a
And that's
time,
true.
there's
Yeah.
a level of pressure I put on it, and I find
She
myself, and I
does.
really have to pause because I feel bad sometimes. Once she's
Mhm.
in bed, I'm like, but you got to be in bed by this time.
Yeah.
Like I'm racing against
Yeah.
the clock against
Yep.
bedtime. And so my first thought is to
Mhm.
say the morning routine. Now, I am a person
Mhm.
who loves my sleep. I am not really a morning person. However, that's over the 47 second shift. I think I'm going to take the morning routine.
That is hilarious,
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh. And
so
it's like
funny.
Nova does this thing where when she's really tired, she gets so like goofy,
She
silly.
does. She can barely
And
put her pajamas on.
Dr. Amber, if I'm trying to put her in a one piece pair of pajamas and she starts playing, I
Nope.
have literally like thrown the pajamas and like, Mo, just come. Cause I literally cannot, like, I am up to here. So I recognize
I
that
know.
is the 47 shift is a parenting trigger for me.
No. And look, and that's why you say recognize your
Mm-hmm.
triggers and plan
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
around them because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that's it's funny. I recently did like a workshop thing on YouTube that I'm trying to
Yeah.
get into YouTube about
Yeah.
the second shift. Like it's all about the second shifts and the challenges and the obstacles. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, exactly what you
Mhm.
said. Like for many people, still myself included,
Mm-hmm.
like both of them are terrible options. But if I have to choose, I would choose the second shift. But like you said, by the end of the day, you're exhausted. Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Mm-mm.
have
Yeah.
nothing else to give. And
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
just like, I'm trying to give, I'm trying to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I just want you to go to bed. I love
Mm-hmm.
you so
Yeah.
much. I say
Mm-hmm.
that to my kids all the time. Like, I love you so
So
much, but
much.
you really gotta go.
Yeah.
You
I
gotta go.
love you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ugh,
I love it.
Oh,
Wow.
these kids.
Dr. Amber, where can people stay connected with you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you've shared with them at this point about your book. We'll make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we put all of this in the show notes. But
Mm-hmm.
where can people stay connected with you? How do you want people to keep up with you?
Of course. I'm on the internet everywhere, really.
Mhm.
Instagram is probably the primary one.
Mhm.
Okay.
I love Instagram. I'm always on there. So at Dr. Amber Thornton is where you can find me
Okay.
there. I'm also growing my YouTube channel and trying to
Yeah.
put unique content on there, which has been really fun.
Mhm.
And more recently, it has been content around the topic of dysregulation.
Okay.
Again, I do have that workshop on there about the second shift. So topics related to regulating your emotions as a parent, all on the YouTube channel, again, at Dr. Amber Thornton. And then also at my website, dramberthornton.com. You can learn about me, services, working with me
Mm.
therapeutically, but then also ordering the book too.
Yay.
Awesome.
Well, I am just so grateful that you took this time to be on our podcast. It's an
Mhm.
honor to have you
An
here
honor.
and to learn from you. This is a topic where people have asked us a lot of questions around parenting.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, and we are not experts. That is
Nope.
above my pay grade. I
Nope.
always say that with other therapists and their expertise. This is above my pay grade. I
Yeah.
focus on these things. I am just so grateful that you decided to share your wisdom with us.
Mhm. Thank you
Oh my
so
gosh, thank
much. I
you.
really, really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. I cannot stress enough how excited I am for the book. And we will be sure to blast it out in all of our social media and all of our communication. So thank you so much, Dr. Amber.
Thank you all
Yay.
so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to chat with you all. So thank you.
Yay.
Yay.
Well, this has been a beautiful episode of the Be Your Own Love Goes podcast. It's Mo
And
Ari. You all
Tiffany.
have a great day and be well.
Bye. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Video episodes are on YouTube and Spotify.
If you want your question included in an upcoming episode, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Be Your Own Love Goals or check out our website at lovegoalspodcast.com. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Bye.